Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
We've got the great Caroline Downey back with us again from National Review.
From National Review, our second National Review.
First time for you.
First time for me, yes. No, but we had Charles C.W. Cook here.
Yes, we did.
The Right Honorable, not too long ago.
Yeah.
My colleague.
He graced us with his eloquent prose.
Yes. Caroline, thank you for doing this again. But it's to say you're from National Review is only a piece of what you do. Talk to us about, because I don't know if we got into this the last episode, but that you were a guest. You have been involved in a lot of things. The Conservateur, is that how we say it? Right?
Yeah.
Conservateur.
Yes, it's like a women's lifestyle brand that's hoping to counter the leftist monopoly of Vogue and Vanity Fair and Elle and Glamour, that they have great aesthetics, but they normalize and glamorize ugly ideas such as infidelity and witchcraft and the sexual revolution, all those things that we think have kind of ruined Western civilization.
Well, and the fact that, and I'm trying to remember which, and maybe it's more than one of the magazines. I think it was Vogue, but I feel like there was a man on the cover.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm right about that, right?
Yeah, they've definitely thrown women to the wolves in the pursuit of progressivism. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and what's so great about what you're doing with that platform is when a lot of people think of, at least in the mainstream, they think of conservative women. I mean, when we were growing up and coming up in the movement, it was like Phyllis Schlafly and Babe Buchanan,
Right?
Yeah, and others, and yet there's this. What has been highlighted since the election is this whole new wave of young conservative women who are fighting for true women's rights and true women's independence, and faith, freedom, and free enterprise.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's an uphill battle because when you look at Gen Z, the age demographic 18 to 29 as a whole, the majority of the young women are progressive. In fact, according to The Guardian, they are the most progressive group in American history.
Wow.
So it's pretty bleak. So if we're going to be the counterculture, we're going to have a lot of deprogramming to do when it comes to how radical feminism, which in my opinion is synonymous with wokeism. Most of what you think of as woke is really just radical feminism. Everything from DEI to the gender ideology craze is kind of foisting these political paranoias onto people to protect some sort of alleged victim or marginalized group. That that's the whole premise. So anyway, we have a lot of work to do, but I wear some other hats as well these days, and most of it for National Review is actually multimedia. So I'm a columnist, but I'm doing a lot of YouTube these days, and the hope there is that we'll reach younger audiences that are not reading. They're not going to print. They're not even necessarily following digital publications, but they are watching. And they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, and they like conversational tones, more authentic, relatable, like almost like you're talking to a friend, that sort of format.
Right.
So it's a big challenge for media companies to meet those people, but we're trying.
And so this is going to be weird because we're going to ask some advice. We are not on TikTok. Is that something that we need to do?
Well, so National Review very admirably had a longstanding editorial position that we are fundamentally opposed to TikTok as long as it is in bed with the CCP via ByteDance. And until there is a new company that buys it, an acquisition from an American company, it's still compromised. So from what I understand, that's underway. The Trump administration was looking.
He's working on
Well,
it.
He's
they
working
keep
on
going
it.
back and forth on it.
Yeah.
I think.
Right. And that's been a hemming and hawing, a bit of a saga there, because there was an extension on the buyout legislation that technically was not legal, but Trump kind of declared it. Oh yeah, we could just give them more time. It's like, no, that's not that's not what the law says. But if he says he's got a party that's interested and is willing to get this over the finish line, that would be good. That would be our condition at National Review for going on TikTok as a platform, and I recommend that for others as well.
Well, we'll follow your lead.
Yeah, we have not.
We
have not dove into the communist swill.
Not yet.
Yeah.
And we don't want to. So
plus, we leave our clothes on.
Yeah.
Well, it's also compounded by the fact that the CCP, the Chinese regime, is inhibiting what kinds of content are being fed to their children, because they're focused on their academic excellence and becoming contributing members of their society.
Of course.
But they don't mind if TikTok becomes a brain rot cesspool for our kids who are becoming dumber. They're losing their critical thinking skills. They're getting caught up in these dark rabbit holes. They don't care about that.
Well, I mean, the Chinese get a lot of passes in our society.
Yeah,
between farmland and 600,000 Chinese students, and we can go down the list.
You name it. Well, one of the things my wife is a graduate of UCSD, so she came out of the university system in California, and I saw a report that there was like a basic, the kind of math problem that my first grader is doing right now.
Oh yeah,
it's like 8 + 2 = 7 plus ? 25% of the incoming freshmen at UCSD could not solve that problem.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because that was an example of a problem that we covered in a Fox segment very recently. And the segment was, there's this California college that is now offering remedial math classes to freshman students to compensate for whatever arithmetic and algebra that they totally did not get when they were in high school. And that exposed, of course, the COVID scandal and the mismanagement of that, and how children were the collateral damage, and those kids may never recover. I mean, I'm the older cohort of Gen Z, which is bordering on millennial. We made it out okay. I lost like a couple months of senior year of college. But the younger cohort, they are woefully underprepared for life and society, and it's not their fault.
Well, a lot of schools also eliminated the SAT as a condition for applying.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself,
but I think that's
threw a bunch of people into.
I think that's the standardized testing is coming back, I believe, into some admissions.
But that's a huge problem when you go down that road, because then you have no way of measuring academic excellence.
And they're probably going to have to water down they already did water down the standards for certain tests during COVID to give people a break, give kids a break. But I don't see how most students that are Gen Z right now, I don't see how they're going to perform as highly as maybe the older generations did on that test, because the learning loss was so profound over COVID and all of these essential subjects. So the academic outcomes prove that.
It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
You set a generation back. And which is one of the reasons why we probably see so much liberalism in that generation, because, like as you said, they're visual. So they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube. Yeah. And the CCP and others are feeding them all this trash.
Yeah, the amount of garbage,
believing that, women can be men, men can be women.
I mean, just the amount of complete garbage that's out there is just absolutely astounding. It's
Speaking of garbage, you're from New York.
Yes, which always smells like hot garbage. Yeah.
And New York, ever since your former mayor Bill de Blasio was mayor, garbage has been piling up in the streets, and now you have even more garbage piling up in the streets with comrade Mamdani.
Well, yes, and metaphorical garbage, because all of his ideas are also garbage and will rot the city from the inside out, I'm afraid. But
do you plan on staying?
Well, let's see.
Or the flight begins. Maybe
I'm a bit of a masochist, but if you got accustomed to progressive governance in New York City, which I was when I moved there, it was de Blasio, which was rather draconian. He, of course, had the terrible restrictions for COVID. I was like, why did I choose to come here? This is a very sad existence. But then Adams came in, and it was actually an injection of moderation. It was some common sense governance, even though he was still liberal comparatively. But he brought more cops out. You could tell there was like a tangible difference in the police presence around some major hubs in the city, especially in the subway platforms. But now with Mamdani, I expect all that's going to go out the window, but I've almost gotten used to this like baseline of everything is terrible. So I also
so you have a high tolerance.
I have a high tolerance for pain, and I think a lot of New Yorkers do. There's always Hoboken, which is right over the river, and I was considering that, but honestly, let's just see how bad it gets, because there were two schools of thought on this. One is Mamdani is a socialist. He's going to inflict maximum damage on New York City, and we should all be terribly afraid. The other school of thought was he's a moron. Yes, he has toxic, noxious ideas. His funding for his campaign was tied to radical Islamism, you name it. But at the same time, he doesn't have the unilateral power he thinks he does. He still has to play ball with the New York legislature and Kathy Hochul as long as she's governor. And she basically did a George H.W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes.
Right. Even
though she's a Democrat, she knows that she can't afford to run the most wealthy New Yorkers out of the city because they are the tax base.
Yeah.
And he also probably won't be able to deal with the city hall bureaucracy maybe the way he anticipated. There's a lot of things he can't do.
Yeah, I think that is a great take because
let's just hope that's true.
Yeah, I mean, because I think that there is. I mean, I think this was true of AOC, that they kind of buy their own bullshit enough that they think,
Cortez?
I think we can get this. We're going to be able to do this, and so I think he really believes that. I mean, maybe he looks at Trump and all the stuff that Trump is doing unilaterally and thinks, oh, I'm going to do all these things. And you're right. I think there's a lot of checks that he may not be aware of or not thinking through.
Well, you're absolutely proving my longstanding point, and that is people of the Democratic Socialists of America are just standing mouthpieces.
Yeah.
They really have no ideas of their own. They just regurgitate whatever they're told to regurgitate. And for him, I think that's absolutely true. He's charismatic. He sort of operates off of a script. AOC, Sandy Cortez, same thing.
Yeah, there's no question that these were groomed performers.
Yeah, and so much of what they do seems performative.
I mean,
until they hit reality.
Yeah, Mamdani is a theater kid, politician through and through. There's not an ounce of authenticity when he talks, but he's a smiley guy and he's charismatic.
And he eats with his fingers.
Oh, God.
Trying to be authentic.
So wild.
Trying to be authentic.
But to your point about he hit all the right notes, especially for young people, he came up with the affordability, the magical elixir that would cure everything, even though his prescriptions will likely backfire and make things so much worse. Rent freezes and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's the interesting part about it. I mean, the whole affordability question now is part of the lexicon of American politics, but the remedies for that the left wants to entertain are completely off the wall.
Yeah, I mean, they do the opposite of affordability, for sure. I mean, it's interesting, speaking of affordability, you see that Trump has reversed himself on the vote on releasing the Epstein files and saying we got to get this stuff out there so we can start talking about affordability, as if we haven't tried to talk about affordability. Speaker Johnson just came out this morning saying that he's going to vote for the release, even though he was blocking it for 2 months. I think this is an indication, and I still don't understand why Trump was saying we should not release these files when he campaigned on that. That to me makes no sense, because if there was anything truly damaging to Trump, it would have been out. I mean, with the when the Justice Department under Biden didn't have something to release, to leak, then you know that there's nothing there. That's
Well, you know what I've always said about the Epstein files has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Has everything to do with William Jefferson Clinton.
Well,
and
right.
the Clinton and the whole
he's
Clinton machine.
And
you see that Larry Summers is now
getting dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein. Who would have thought?
Well, and it's, I mean,
now he's taking a relief from public.
I think
engagement.
He's done. I think he's done.
You think?
That's
well, and the thing about resisting releasing the files, even though you're right, it was part of the campaign platform, which is full transparency to the American people, is that base is going to start questioning, what are you hiding, and who else is implicated, and now we have more questions. So it was just a smart thing to do, I think, was to release it and to fulfill your campaign promise. But I think the change of heart is because the MAGA base is fracturing right now.
Yeah.
You have a lot of disparate factions. Some of their proposals that have come down the pipeline recently have not gone over well. One comes to mind, 50-year mortgage. I think they've been surprised by how the Trump administration's latest innovative ideas have not been well received by at least the internet discourse on X, which is not necessarily representative of the whole party, but
it's what they pay attention to that.
They pay attention to X. I mean, JD Vance is terrific. He's a real involved, participant on X, and the 50-year mortgage outcry was pretty serious, but from principled conservatives and also MAGA, like the MAGA wing for sure.
Yeah. Well, Ben Dominic has a whole article in The Spectator yesterday on the MAGA crack-up.
Yeah.
Just talking about the whole, since Charlie Kirk's assassination, this whole, MAGAsphere sort of crack-up between Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens and this, and where's JD Vance going to fall in this in terms of the 2028 election, and can you keep this fractious coalition together?
Well, and you can see it playing out. I mean, you've got Cruz, who's clearly got presidential ambitions again, really leaning in against Tucker and Fuentes and those guys. Yeah. And then, Megyn Kelly, I feel like, is just stuck in the middle trying to be like, I'm friends with everybody.
Well, she's defending Tucker pretty full-throated on her show. I mean, her interview with Ben last week, and she had both on last week, I thought she just kind of let Tucker say what he wanted to say, and that was fine, and tried to defend whatever he wanted to defend. But I thought she really went after Ben in terms of what he had been saying about Tucker. And I don't know if that went over really well.
I think everybody is trying to toe the line here, and it's this delicate balancing act, although I would argue there should be no leeway given to these very unsavory characters at all. You should not be giving them the time of day at all. But it goes to show you how strange this media ecosystem is, that some of these personalities are potentially trying to court the Fuentes audience.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And how, because this is all because Charlie Kirk's assassination left a vacuum for common sense, grounded, faith-based, conservative thought for young people especially. And now that he's gone, in his absence, there's all these people that are trying to be the heir, and it's a turf war. It is a full-blown turf war. And when it comes to the electoral politics, I think the Republican Party has a major problem with young people. Obviously, a lot of them flock to Trump in 2024, especially young men. Young women, not so much. So in order to keep retaining the young people in future elections, you have to keep in mind a few things about how Gen Z works. There's a huge Gen Z support for Nick Fuentes because Gen Zs fundamentally, especially men, are skeptical of the establishment. They are very anti-institutions. So Ted Cruz, I think he's a principled, bona fide conservative. But if Gen Z looks at him and says, no, you're robotic, you're rehearsed, you're old guard, you're sterile, you're done. You're done with that group, And so it's a competition. Which candidate is going to somehow appeal to the young people who want something real and authentic, but is also not off the deep end? Because you could easily go off the deep end.
Yeah.
I think Marco Rubio might be the middle ground there.
That's where we fall.
Yeah, we're big fans of Marco.
Well, and I think that, I mean, this
he's a boss.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yes, he is, because he's got like 5 jobs.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. There's like so many memes about him, and they're all positive. They're all like, oh man, he's just too competent. People keep handing him the reins. Now he'll be running the whole government behind the scenes.
Well, and he's incredibly smart, and he's incredibly adept.
Yeah.
He can pivot. I enjoy watching him when I don't know why he does it, when he goes on Face of the Nation, and he just totally makes mincemeat out of Margaret.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
Well, the thing, I mean, he is super smart.
Yeah.
Probably one of the smartest people in Washington, just from brain power standpoint. But more important than that is that he is completely committed to freedom.
Absolutely.
Because of his personal experience of learning from his father, who was exiled from Cuba, escaped Cuba, and understands the true danger of communism, of socialism, of any of the things that impede on freedom. And so he is by far the best of the standard bearers that would carry the true conservative flag. And dismiss the stuff. I mean, because, it's fascinating to me when you think about people like Tucker and Megyn and anyone who isn't just completely pushing Fuentes out. They forget, and we've talked about this before, but it seems apropos. We have Caroline here, National Review. They forget about how important it was that William F. Buckley pushed the John Birch Society out. I mean, they were crazies, and they were going to destroy the movement. And Fuentes has the ability to destroy conservatism.
Yeah.
If we allow that to be him to be a part of what we are,
right?
He's not. That's not conservatism.
Yeah. And I think if William F. Buckley was here right now, he would emphasize the importance of exiling the kooks and the nut jobs that are undermining the entire mission. Because, I mean, that's what Fuentes is putting out is nearly unrecognizable to what Buckley promoted once upon a time.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm still just completely baffled by the Kevin Roberts reaction. I mean, I don't know that he's fixed it.
Well, he just had another board member resign this week from Heritage.
Yeah.
On Monday.
So
it's baffling where we find ourselves right now. I mean, there was so much goodwill.
And what's crazy is that we have watched the Democrats. I mean, since the 2024 election, we watched the Democrats completely flailing, and I predicted on this podcast a few months ago that it will be a generation before the Democrats can come back, and boy, was I wrong.
Yeah,
because we've allowed it to happen.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot. Yeah.
We are proving that we can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory better than anybody else.
Yeah. And there's a better way. But sadly, they killed the better way, which was Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you want to talk about all the options out there really wasn't someone who was able to command an audience, especially of impressionable young people, as well as he did. Well, but anchor them in morals, which was the big
right.
thing.
And that's exactly right, because it was an evolution. He went through his own evolution, which made it even more powerful because he became a voice of reason on college campuses. He drew attention. He started getting a following. Then he had his own reawakening with faith, and.
Well, that had a lot to do with Erica, too.
Yeah, and then that drew more people in.
And the Charlie Kirk you and I met back in 16, before that, you met him in 15, I think. I met him in 17. He wasn't the Charlie Kirk.
No, yeah, in 2012, when he was just getting started, when I first knew him, he was just a very articulate young kid.
Yeah.
Who, had a good vision of founders and, was smart. It wasn't a faith-driven thing.
No, he wasn't evangelizing people back then. And then that everything completely changed.
But I think that, and Caroline, I think you nailed it, is that there's without the faith component, and none of these other commentators are filling that void at all.
No.
I mean, not even close. It's not Tucker, and it's not Megyn.
Allie Beth Stuckey is for young women.
Yeah.
She's like a nice silver lining in all of this.
Right.
But there's nobody on the male side that is filling that. And I think that's a great observation.
But yeah, they don't have the influence that Charlie did, but they're gaining influence, except it's bankrupt of morals.
Yeah.
So is the problem.
Well, it goes back to what you're saying about the opportunity for conservatives is that how do we find somebody within the political sphere that has that authenticity and can speak to young people from a faith standpoint, from a faith component, speak to that first, like Charlie did, what he grew into, and then at the same time talk about the policy prescriptions that grow out of that faith component.
Right. Because you look at what the modern manosphere is, which is that really strange online corner where a lot of these people dwell. Andrew Tate is the most prominent example. I mean, they're like, I was saying this last night, what they're prescribing is basically an overcorrection to feminism's overcorrection. So feminism was once about equal opportunity, and then it eventually mutated to toxic masculinity. All men are trash and the root of all evil. And so what the manosphere did was, well, let's just go hard in the other direction and go to the other extreme, which is let's abandon all of those tried and true institutions that have served us well, marriage and the family, and let's let's retreat inward even more. If feminism is a selfish ideology, so is whatever the manosphere is saying, which is basically saying to men, you should be promiscuous. You should have a ton of partners. You shouldn't commit. Monogamy is a trap. Marriage is a trap. That's the message, and it's really sad.
And Charlie's message was completely
the opposite.
Yeah.
The opposite.
Well, it was get married, have kids, provide for your family.
Well, and what's interesting is
that's the meaning of life,
and that is a direct through line from Buckley.
Oh, of course.
I mean, and that's the thing that because no young people really. I mean, every time I mention William F. Buckley to anybody younger than me, it's like,
I know.
And it's sad because I do believe that we need to reach back and have the guidepost of our past. And Charlie did that. He understood that with the founders and with the leaders of the conservative movement over time. But Buckley was the perfect example of leading with faith as well. I mean, it was. I mean, his start in the conservative movement of coming right out of Yale and writing a critique about how it's a faithless place.
Yeah.
Now they took God out of Yale.
Right.
I mean, it's that was what he led with, and that was who he was through the entirety of his life.
Yeah, he thought that religiosity was, I think, necessary to a vibrant civil society. And as the secularization of society continues, we have people falling more and more into progressivism. However, one bright spot is that there is a religious revival going on, I think, at least from the data, and it's being driven by young men. Yeah. So there is the danger that young men are susceptible to these more, toxic ideas. But at the same time, they're going back to church,
right,
in droves. Yeah. So they're
which
the ones
is a clear bright spot. I mean,
and that's where it has to come from.
Yeah,
it has to come from young men making that decision to walk into faith.
Yeah,
100%,
and do it early.
No question.
And that is one of the bright spots of what happened to Charlie.
Yeah.
Well, and it was starting.
It was
and
beginning,
I think that definitely
but then
supercharged.
You read all these
bit.
stories of people who hadn't been to church in 20, 30 years, all of a sudden, opening up a Bible and walking into, whether it's a Catholic church or a Bible church or whatever. And that's the one bright spot and hopefully a lot of these so-called influencers and leaders can see that and somebody will step into that gap. I don't see it yet.
Right.
And that's...
And it has to exude it has to exude from you. You could say, oh yeah, I'm a faithful person. I practice. But with Charlie, it was in every word he said.
Yeah.
He was a man of God, and there was no way of faking it at all. And again, back to the authenticity thing. That's what I think matters most to young people now.
Yeah. I think it's interesting you brought up two Cuban Americans and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right about Marco, is that he exudes that authenticity. He can walk into those areas and really communicate with young people in a way that's unique. Whereas you're absolutely correct about your assessment of Senator Cruz. He comes off as somewhat robotic and somewhat
wicked
staid.
Smart. Wicked
smart. Incredibly smart and incredibly adept, and obviously knows the Senate and is the new lion of the Senate by any stretch of the imagination.
I grew up really admiring him as someone who loved the debate format, and he, I believe it was one of the Ivy Leagues. He either founded the debate club, well, I don't know if that's true, but maybe he was the president or it was named after it, something like that. He had such a legacy in speech and debate. So he really is just an incredible, articulate speaker, very impressive. I mean, can talk circles around people. But yeah, today it's very interesting how sounding the most polished doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the attention and the hearts and minds of young people. So
I mean, it's interesting because when you look at the big leaders in the conservative movement, well, obviously Buckley's a little bit different because he was very polished, because he was very sophisticated, but Barry Goldwater was not polished. Ronald Reagan wasn't necessarily polished. And even if he was, he knew how to be authentic when he talked. And when he talked, it wasn't a polished, it was a conversation.
Great speech writers too.
Yeah,
He had amazing speeches.
Amazing.
But that's also, I think, what has, drawn a lot of young men to Trump, right?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just they see an authenticity there that they don't see in other politicians. Someone who's willing to say whatever he wants to say,
Right.
and
Yes.
and doesn't care about the consequences. And they look at that and like, well, isn't that the way it should be?
So I've written about this, especially in the context of young men feel disenfranchised from society. They're disengaging from all the institutions where they used to be a majority, including academia. Young women now outnumber men hugely in terms of bachelor's degrees. And I think what they saw in Trump was, this is like what I said, an archetype of audacity, someone who's bold.
That's a great line.
He's unapologetic. He's a little brash, but he gave young men permission to be themselves, because it wasn't like the progressives who were saying, well, actually, you do have to repent for something and you are the problem and you should accept that and then kind of, just lie down and take it. Trump was like, no, you're very important to our society. You have a very important role to play, and I'm not asking you to apologize for being yourselves. So that, I think, was very empowering to young men, even if it was, even if it came off as callous to other people, it was like to use a Tim Walz phrase that he used on the campaign trail to try to win men to the Democratic Party, which was a lost cause because young men are not idiots, but they were marketing to them like they were rubes. Tim Walz said, permission structure. Yeah. I am the permission structure for men to vote for Kamala Harris. It's like, no, Trump was actually the one giving them permission.
Right.
And it wasn't fraudulent. It wasn't fake.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point.
Yeah, he was the permission structure for embodying exactly what we don't want our young men to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy,
Another Tim Walz.
Jeez.
Which is...
Caroline, thank you for being here. Where can people follow you and keep up on what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. So Twitter is where I'm at a lot of the time. I regularly on Fox News and Fox Business, if you watch that. And then YouTube, my YouTube show with National Review is called Locked In, another Gen Z phrase for you.
There you go.
It's time to lock in. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And also, congratulations, you're recently engaged.
Thanks so much.
Yes. That's
congratulations.
fantastic.
I
And
appreciate
best of luck
it.
to you.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. It's a good thing, despite what the manosphere says. It's a good thing.
Get married.
Get married.
And what
have
feminists
kids.
say. Yeah, it's a good thing.
And remember that we are a podcast of these core fundamental principles: faith, freedom, free enterprise. The founding principles of our fair republic.
That's right. Thanks again, folks. Take care.
Thanks for listening. God bless.
See ya.